All right, are we live?
Yep.
All right, we are. Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly McCullough. I'm the Legislative Director here at the ACLU of Oregon. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Before we get started, I just want to let you know how meaningful it is for me personally and also for the whole ACLU of Oregon staff that you're taking your time to learn about our work and to talk to us about the legislative session. Real changes can come about when people get involved in state and local legislation. This is really the first line of defense for our privacy, for checking government power, for protecting reproductive freedom and access to abortion, for reforming our expensive and ineffective criminal justice system, and for ensuring that Oregon laws are rooted in fairness and inclusiveness, and so much more. With that being said, I really hope that all of you will join us for our lobby day in Salem next month. That's going to be Thursday, March 23rd. Thursday, March 23rd, write it down. Our registration form has just gone live. We are going to post that in the comments now, so you can look in the comments to this and you can sign up. So space is limited, so please sign up now and bring some friends. Get your friends to sign up as well. On this special day, our lobby day, we have members from all across the state that join us in Salem. What we do is we'll train you on the details of bills that we're supporting and then also some bills that we're opposing in the legislature. We'll also help you learn how best to talk to your legislators. And then you're going to be paired with other members of the community for meetings with your legislators. We'll have lunch. We also have a bus that comes from Portland. And then we're also going to have a rally on the Capitol steps. It's a really exciting and empowering day, and I encourage you all to attend. People have a lot of fun. So the American Civil Liberties Union of Oregon is the Oregon affiliate of the ACLU. We're a statewide advocacy group, and we're a watchdog for civil liberties and civil rights. We do that through impact litigation, public education, legislation. We also work on ballot measures and other policies. So we now have over 20,000 members statewide. If you aren't yet a member, please join us. You can check the comments now for a link to our website. That's aclu-or.org. So we work on a really broad range of issues. And some of that work we do is affirmative. We have something that we want to get passed. And sometimes the work that we do actually, a lot of the time, the work that we do is defensive. So something gets introduced in the legislature and it's going to endanger our civil rights and civil liberties, and we will fight to make sure that that bill doesn't pass. So some examples of those types of bills are bills that would limit access to reproductive health care, bills that would impact your free speech and association rights, things that would endanger our privacy, or weaken protections and against unreasonable search and seizure by the government or law enforcement. Anything that's going to increase a criminal penalty or create a new crime, we're going to look very, very carefully at those. I'm extremely concerned about over-incarceration and criminalization of all of our communities. We also are very concerned about bills that would reduce accountability and transparency of government and law enforcement. Anything that might negatively impact communities of color or other marginalized communities. Things that would weaken anti-discrimination protections. Anything that would reduce equal access to voting. We've got really great voting rights in Oregon, and we're going to make sure to keep those strong. Anything that might weaken our public records laws, because we know that being able to access public records really helps us understand and what's going on with government and keep them transparent. So we have a lot of bills that we work on, and I basically just don't want to overwhelm everyone and tell you too much information. So what I'm going to do right now is highlight 4 bills that we're supporting. As the legislative session goes on, you can keep following us online, and we are going to come back in March and give you another update. And so you can keep up with all the different things that we're supporting that way. But I'm going to tell you about 4 bills right now. So the first bill is House Bill 2355. This bill is designed to help end profiling in Oregon. So profiling, it's based on the false assumption that members of certain populations are more likely to be criminals. We know that's not true. Although racial profiling was already prohibited in Oregon, we worked with Unite Oregon and many of our allies to expand the law to make sure that it applied to more populations, because we know that there are a number of different populations that are targeted by law enforcement. So it now includes a variety of different populations, including the, members of the LGBT community, people with disabilities, houseless people, religious minorities, and more. So this new law that was passed in 2015, it created mechanisms for collecting and analyzing profiling complaints, so people can now file a complaint for profiling, and that's going to be followed up on and also studied so that we can learn from it and make sure that we understand exactly what's happening. And then that was all done in the End Profiling Act of 2015. So that law also instructed the Attorney General to lead a task force, and that task force was instructed to study anti-profiling policy and make recommendations to the legislature on how to help identify and correct patterns and practices of profiling by law enforcement in Oregon. So I have served on that task force for almost 2 years now. And fortunately, we have reached consensus on this bill, let me tell you the bill number again. It's House Bill 2355. And the components of the bill require that law enforcement collect race and gender data about who they're targeting for stops, so that way we can understand where profiling is actually happening. It mandates anti-profiling training and updated training. It's very much in need of updating. Updated and anti-profiling training for all levels of law enforcement. So right when they become a police officer, but also if they go into any sort of supervisory position. It'll also help provide accountability when patterns and practices of profiling are identified. So those are all things that are in that bill. So the next bill I'm going to talk to you about is the Reproductive Health Equity Act. That is House Bill 2232. Really excited about this bill. Access to reproductive health care is critical to our health and also our economic security for all Oregonians. That's why everyone in Oregon, regardless of their income, their citizenship status, their gender identity, or their type of insurance, they need access to the full range of reproductive health care services and the ability to choose whether and when to have children. So the Reproductive Health Equity Act of 2017 is a really important step towards ensuring that Oregonians have meaningful access to the care that they need. As a member of the Pro-Choice Coalition of Oregon, the ACLU of Oregon, we're really proud to have helped craft and now to support this bill. The Reproductive Health Equity Act will ensure that all Oregonians receive the full range of reproductive health care services, the preventive reproductive health care services at zero out-of-pocket cost. It'll also fill gaps in reproductive health care coverage for people who are categorically excluded from being able to access that care due to their citizenship status. And it will also prohibit discrimination in reproductive health care. So you can get involved with this campaign now to help pass the bill. The campaign is called the Reproductive Health Equity, it's called Reproductive Health Equity Now. There's a website that you can visit and you can find out more information about it and how to support the bill. It's reprohealthequity.org. That's R-E-P-R-O, healthequity.org. Okay, so the next bill we're going to talk about is the Right to Rest Act. That is House Bill 2215. So as I'm sure you all know, Oregon is facing a very, very serious housing crisis. And because of that, because there's not enough housing, not enough affordable housing, there are very large numbers of Oregonians who are living on the street. Criminalization of homelessness doesn't help. Instead, criminalization actually hurts. It erects barriers for people who want to find housing and want to find jobs. So reducing criminalization will actually allow us to redirect our resources to things that actually help reduce homelessness. The Right to Rest Act, basically what it does is it's going to help protect people who are homeless from discrimination, and it will also prevent the enactment and also the enforcement of laws that criminalize basic life-sustaining activities such as sitting, sleeping, and sharing food. And trust me, there are many of these laws all around the state. Many of them. So why do we do this? You know, rest, really, it's a human right. Being able to rest is so important. It's essential to everyone's health, to their safety, to their well-being, and for their ability to function. So the Right to Rest Act is part of a larger campaign called the Homeless Bill of Rights campaign. You can learn more about that campaign on the website of one of our wonderful allies, Western Regional Advocacy Project. We'll post a link in the comments, but it's wraphome.org. And I encourage you to check it out. They're a really awesome organization. Okay, so the last bill I'm going to talk about has to do with grand jury recording. That is SB 496. So recording is essential to ensuring that grand juries serve their constitutional function of protecting individuals like you and me against abuse of the grand jury process. The historical role of the grand jury is to provide a check on the prosecutor's power in the criminal justice system. That's reflected in the Fifth Amendment. This is so important that it's in the Fifth Amendment to our Constitution. But there's a problem. Grand juries, as we unfortunately know, are too often no more than a rubber stamp on the prosecutor's decisions. Without a recording and without disclosure of that recording to defendants, misconduct is basically impossible to detect and to correct. In addition, secrecy, it undermines the public's confidence in our judicial system, and it also reinforces perceptions that the system is rigged. Secret proceedings leave the public helpless to do anything other than speculate about what actually occurred behind closed doors. So for that reason, we support disclosure of a grand jury recording when a grand jury fails to indict a public official. So a good example of that would be if a grand jury failed to bring charges against a police officer who had shot and killed an Oregonian. If that happened, if they failed to bring charges, we would want to know what happened in that grand jury. And without a recording, there's just no way for us to do that. So those are the bills that are our biggest priority bills that we're supporting right now. I just want to let you know that there are some ways that you can get involved. The first thing that you can do, and I think this is one of the most important things you can do, is you can contact your legislators. So if some of these bills that I was just talking about are important to you, so if you really, really care about reproductive health, if you really care about ending profiling or about recording grand juries or about decriminalizing homelessness, you can call your legislator. You can pick up the phone and call them. Somebody will answer the phone. If they don't answer the phone, they'll let you leave a message, and on most of the time they'll get back to you, or you can call back until you get somebody on the phone. If you send an email, there is someone who will read every single email that those legislators get, and they'll pass along the message to the legislator. So it really, really does make a difference. I work in Salem during the legislative session, and I can tell you that over and over and over again, I have legislators come up to me and they say, hey, I got a letter from one of my constituents, or I got a phone call from my constituent, and they said this. And they said this thing is really important to them, and so now I want to care about it. I want to know about it. I want to do something about it. So it really, really does make a difference. So you can find out who your legislator is if you don't know by just Googling who's my legislator, Oregon. If you Google that, it'll bring up the website of it's the Oregon Legislative Information System, and you can just type in your address, and it will tell you who your senator and who your representative are. So one thing also that you can ask your legislator is you can find out when they're going to have a town hall. Not all legislators do them, but most of them do, and some of them do them multiple times a year, but they'll do a town hall in their district, so it'll be close to wherever you live. And you can actually go there and meet them and tell them face to face why you care about certain issues. So there are also a number of things that you can do to help us. You can become a member, as I mentioned before. It really does make a difference. You can also register for that lobby day that I mentioned earlier that's on March 23rd. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and you can share the things that we post and tell your friends and your relatives and your everybody you talk to about the things that we're working on and why they're important to you. You can also sign up for our action alerts. When you sign up for those, you'll get an email when we really need your help on a specific issue. So we might send you a petition that we're asking you to sign, or we might ask you to sign on to a letter that will go to your senator and your representative. It's a really, really great way for us to get in touch with you right away when we need your help. So sign up for the action alerts. And then you can also keep an eye out for another Facebook event that's going to be in March, where we're going to give you another update. So I think maybe we might have some questions. Any questions? No questions. I probably should have told you at the beginning that I would take some questions at the end. If anybody has any questions and they want to type them out really quick, you can do that now, and maybe wait just a couple seconds. See if something pops up. And if not, cool. No worries. Well, if you have questions and you want,
yeah, they can post them.
You can post them in the comments, and we'll try to get answers back to you. So if you're watching this now or later, we'll keep an eye out. So I just want to thank everyone so much for joining us tonight. We really, really appreciate your support and your interest in the work that we do, and look forward to hopefully seeing you in Salem, and then again when we do our update later in March. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.
Oh wait, we do have one question. Do you want to answer?
Oh, sure.
Are there any additional bills that will follow?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're monitoring a really, really wide range of bills. I think that a couple other things that I could mention is we are deeply concerned about the number of people that we have in our prisons here in Oregon, and in particular, we're very concerned about the fact that back in December, the Department of Corrections asked for money to open a new women's prison. They have just, there's the number of people that they can have, they're just over that limit, just barely. But we know that if they build a new prison, we're going to fill it, and instead what we should do is we should actually get that prison population down. Something that a lot of folks don't know is that about 75%, don't quote me on that specific number, but it's around there, about 75% of women in Oregon's prisons are there for drug and property crimes, so they're not violent criminals. They didn't commit violent crimes, and we have mandatory minimums for a lot of those crimes, and we just don't think that mandatory minimums are a good idea. It doesn't give the judge discretion. And so what we're hoping to do is to support some reforms that will help reduce some of those sentences and get our prison populations down. So that's one thing that we're working on supporting with some of our allies that I think is super important. There's a whole bunch of other issues, and we'll try to keep you updated. Oh, I could tell you one thing. I testified today in support of a bill that would stop the use of solitary confinement for young people who are in Oregon Youth Authority's custody. It would prohibit its use for discipline, which is extremely important. We know that solitary confinement can just be life-shattering for anyone, but especially for young people. So we're really excited to be supporting that bill, and also excited by the fact that Oregon Youth Authority themselves is really leading the charge on trying to change that practice, show people in the rest of the country that that we can do things differently here in Oregon, and that they should do the same. So,
one more question.
Yeah.
Any refugee work we should know about?
We are part of organization. We're part of a coalition called One Oregon. And that coalition it's formed around trying to help protect our immigrant and refugee communities, and try to help support them and their civil rights and their civil liberties. We are working very closely with them to try to make sure to defend against any bills that might harm those communities. Our reproductive health work is a big part of that, is to try to help immigrant communities. And we are looking for ways that we might be able to make some positive steps in the law here in Oregon, but I don't have a specific bill or bill number for you yet. But we definitely are working with our allies, and we're definitely going to do what we can. Yeah, awesome, cool. So I think that's it for questions. Again, thank you all so much for joining us, and I hope to see you in Salem. All right, thanks. Bye.